reminds me of a friend of mine who was called to preach sort of mid-life, and he had several children. Some of them were already in school, and he preached Sunday morning and went a little bit overtime, and he took advantage of that on Sunday evening and went a good bit overtime. And on the way home, the children were in the back seat of the car, and he hadn't been preaching very long, and there was still some question about his talents, his gifts and graces, especially on the part of the children. And one of them on the way home said, "Daddy, I believe you can preach." And they rode on a little bit further, and he said, "But Daddy, if you do preach, you're going to have to get you a watch." It's good to be back at Asheville First United Methodist Church. I was here in 2005 and enjoyed the day. You make us feel so welcome. Betty and I enjoy going to these places where it's like big family. And you don't question anybody's looks. You don't question their actions. You question their love and their grace for you, and you share that together. How many of you remember Louis Grizzard? He used to write articles for the Constitution in Atlanta, I believe, and they got in other papers. And I used to turn to that almost first when I got the paper to read what he had to say, because he was an interesting character, a good bit raunchy at times. You never knew exactly what he was going to say. He grew up exposed to the Methodists in Georgia, and I know that because I read an article once where he was talking about his pastor who was so faithful to visit his mother when she was in the hospital before her death. And Louis Grizzard, talking about Methodists one time, said 1 out of 3 every Methodist is ugly. And he said, if you want to check this out, when you get in a crowd of Methodists, you drop your head and you look to the left, and if that person looks all right, then you look to your right, and if that person looks all right, then you're it. Well, I'm glad to be here. I put together something to try to relate to a lot of stuff that's happening in the world today, and try to challenge us to keep our focus in the Christian life. Fear in the midst of the troubles and storms of life is the title that I have given this. And the scripture is in Matthew, the 14th chapter, beginning with verse 22. Jesus had just fed the multitude, the 5,000, and he sent the disciples away, and they're out in the middle of the sea in the boat, and the storm comes. You're very familiar with this, but I want to read this for you. Immediately, this is after the feeding of the 5,000. Immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But by this time the boat, battered by the waves, was far from the land, for the wind was against them. And early in the morning he came walking toward them on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, saying, "It's a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter answered him, "Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you on the water." He said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and started walking on the water, and he came toward Jesus. But when he noticed the strong wind, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" When they got into the boat, the wind ceased, and those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." This lesson in this passage of Scripture is abundantly clear in two respects. What is it? The original meaning. In seminary, what we call the exegesis, that's the theological term for interpreting the original meaning of Scripture. Now, this is one thing here. When the wind was so strong and life was in danger, Jesus was there to help. Just as soon as a need developed, Jesus was there to help and to save. Jesus had just fed the multitudes, as I said, and here Matthew says he compelled, he ordered the disciples to go on ahead of him. And then after they're out in the boat in the middle of the sea, late in the morning, here comes a storm. And in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came to them walking on the water. When they saw Jesus, they thought he was a ghost, and then they were frightened more anxiety. They cried out in fear, and immediately Jesus spoke to them. "Don't be afraid," he said. "It is I." And Peter said, "If it's really you, Lord, bid me to come to you walking on the water." And Jesus simply said, "Come, come." So Peter got out of the boat and started walking on the water toward Jesus. And when he noticed the storm and the wind, he was afraid, and he started sinking, and he cried out, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus stretched out his hand and caught him. In the midst of their troubles, Jesus came to them. This is the original meaning of this. Now let me say a word about the other part of that. The interpretation of this that gives meaning to us. The message for us today. It's simple. That hand of Jesus is still outstretched to a troubled, hurting, suffering, frightful world. As we live out our lives, the wind is often threatening. The storms come. Literally, they come. The floods come. All tragedy develops, and Lord knows when there will be the end of this. There are times when we are up against it. There are times when we are troubled and we are having a real struggle with ourselves and with our circumstances, with our own personal temptations, with our sorrows and decisions regarding everything from personal finances to other things that we encounter on a day-to-day basis. To say nothing of the increase in crimes and burglaries and murders and all of those things that happen in and around us. As we deal with all of this, we don't need to struggle alone with these issues. Jesus comes to us in the midst of our own storms of life, whatever they are. He comes with his hand outstretched to save, and with that calm, clear voice, "Fear not." Let me say this. Fear and anxiety can rob you of a lot of joy and satisfaction in life. We are meant to live life peacefully and abundantly. This is what Jesus said about his coming. That's the way to live life. Recently, I read some interesting statistics. Someone researched the scriptures, and they found that fear not or do not be afraid, some phrase regarding this, is found in the scriptures. Are you ready for this? It's found in the scriptures 365 times. One, fear not, for every day of the year. Jesus said, don't be afraid.